I was stuck at the 10-7 barrier for 4 years. Then within just 1 year of figuring out where I need to invest my time, I dropped that down to 10-22. The next year after that, I went to 10-08. Wind legal. Not one of those wind-aided PRs that you see a lot of people try to promote on social media. By the end of this video, you know exactly where to invest your time and most importantly, where not to invest your time to get faster. Let's be real. Most sprinters aren't actually training for speed. One, because they're just copying random sprint drills that they see on social media. Two, they're lifting like bodybuilders and power lifters and not like sprinters. And three, they just run themselves into the ground without actually ever improving their sprint technique. And this is why most sprinters are plateauing nowadays. They're just grinding and training without a purpose. And I get it, because this was me for years. I lifted heavy, I ran fast and often. I did all the right things, but my times weren't improving. And the moment I started training with intention and purpose, and most importantly, putting my effort in the right areas, everything changed. In this video, I'm going to do something that's crazy. And I know all the elite sprinters that I compete against don't want me to tell you, but here it is. Step one, you need to master your sprint training system. Most athletes train hard, but not smart. Sprinting is a skill, so you need a system. My first 2 to 3 weeks would be focused on dialing in your mechanics and efficiency. You know, what I'd focus on would be your sprint phases, your acceleration, your transition, and your top end speed mechanics. And the key here is applying forces into the ground efficiently. And number three would be breaking down your sprint posture, such as your front side mechanics and your stride frequency. Here's a quick story. When I first started training seriously, I realized that I was wasting so much time and energy, into my sprint mechanics. My arms were all over the place. My stride was ultimately inefficient, and I wasn't applying the force the right way. The moment I dialed in my sprint form, I immediately shaved off time. Not from getting stronger, but just from moving smarter. The results are ultimately that if you can fix your sprint form, you can ultimately shave off tenths of your time in really a matter of just weeks. And step number two, you should always get an outside perspective. You really can't fix what you can't see ultimately. One of my biggest mistakes was trying to coach myself. I wasted years thinking that I knew what I was doing, when in reality, I needed someone to point out my fatal flaws and what could I get the most bang for my buck, and that ultimately was a coach. This is how I would do it differently. I would record and analyze every single sprint session to ultimately try to find my weak points. I would try to get feedback from experienced sprint coaches, and ultimately, even if it's just a virtual breakdown. And then third, I would try to compare my mechanics to elite sprinter mechanics. And the key here is to do this frame by frame. I remember the first time my coach broke down my sprint starts. On this video, I thought I was moving well, felt like I was moving fast, but ultimately I was making so many mistakes that I couldn't believe were costing me time. I thought I had an extremely strong push off the blocks, but in reality, my hips were way too high, and I was wasting so much time with my first two steps. These adjustments were so small, but ultimately it instantly increased my speed, or I guess in this case, decreased my time. And the result is that a single adjustment in your sprint technique, can be the biggest difference from a good start to a race losing start. These small adjustments are where the real speed improvement lies. And step number three is focusing on recovery and adaptation. Now, this is the real secret to getting faster. You can't always train at max effort, or you will get injured. And most athletes don't realize that poor recovery is the reason why they aren't getting faster and are ultimately plateauing. If you're feeling drained, stiff, or constantly sore, you're probably not adapting. Here's how I would structure my recovery routine. I would focus on active recovery, mobility work, deep tissue releases, and ultimately maybe even some compression therapy. Two, I would do contrast therapy or cold showers. This will help you reduce inflammation and speed up your recovery. And number three, I would actually start tracking my soreness levels. If you're not fresh on your sprint days, you're not adapting because you aren't recovering. In college, man, I made the mistake of overtraining all the time. I would lift before practice. I would lift after practice. I would go from one lift session to go do another cardio session. I would swim. I would be doing all of these different things when I ultimately was over-retraining and under-recovering. I sprinted way too often, and without proper recovery, it ultimately led me to injury. My legs were constantly fatigued, and ultimately I wasn't hitting top speeds in training, which is hindering my actual training sessions in general. Once I started tracking my recovery and taking it more seriously, everything changed as well. So the results are you need to have faster sprint speeds, focusing on higher quality workouts and not just higher volume. This will allow you to train better and also have fewer injuries. And step 4 is to focus on sprint specific strength training. Sprinting isn't just about raw strength. It's about applying that strength at extremely high velocities. So where I would put my effort, one would be hip thrust and Bulgarian split squats. These exercises work really well with acceleration and drive phase. 2 would be Romanian deadlifts and hamstring curls. These will help strengthen your hamstrings for top speed. Number 3 would be resisted sprints or sled pulls. This will help teach the body to apply forces at high speeds. At one point in my career, I was squatting over 400 pounds, but still couldn't get over that 10-7 barrier. And the main problem was that my strength didn't transfer over to on the track. Once I switched over to single leg movements and high rate of force development exercises, I was able to see immediate gains on the track. So the results here are focusing on high rate of force development exercises. That's going to give you better acceleration, better top end speed, and the other exercises is going to kind of help bulletproof your hamstrings. And number 5 is what I wouldn't waste my time on. Athletes love to chase the next random drill or the next trends that they see on social media, instead of focusing on what actually works. 1, overcomplicated sprint drills. The basics work and they always will work if they're done right. 2, stop training like a power lifter or a bodybuilder. Max strength is absolutely useless if you can't apply it to speed. And 3, stop copying workouts that you see from random NFL players in their off season. They train for football, not for sprinting. If it's not about improving mechanics, increasing rate of force production, or aiding in recovery, it's ultimately not a priority. So now you have 2 options. You can either go try to implement all of this stuff on your own, or you can click the link in the bio and join our free community of all sprinters applying this knowledge for free. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe because we'll be posting content like this weekly. I'll see you in the next video.